Thank you for thank you for presentation. Today I gave the lecture about the international journalism and the current geopolitical situation for the journalists of your colleagues of this university, but especially for you, we will touch the geopolitical things. I actually did this lecture for Ukrainian colleagues 2 weeks ago in Ukrainian International University in Kyiv. And in 2 days I will go to Cambridge and to Oxford, to Great Britain, to meet with my colleagues from Great Britain to speak about these geopolitical things. And I'm in Ukraine regarded as an international relation specialist. So I'm not a classical journalist. I'm more, I would say, famous as a foreign policy expert. And that's why thanks that you all come. Part of you I know study in the national security specialty, and I especially for you adopted some practical things concerning Ukraine, because I came just from Kyiv 3 days ago. I live in Kyiv, but I originally from Donetsk, from Donbass, from east of Ukraine. So it's my actually second war. And I want to thank Yaroslav and to Alvida for invitation. I want to thank Kestutis that you supported the idea to make some lecture. I really want to communicate, to speak with you, not just to make lecture, but to speak about your vision of situation, because it's complicated to foresee the consequences of the war generally, and my topic is actually to make forecast for for what will be next year, and what will be next in the next years, I would say, geopolitically around Ukraine, in Baltic countries, so everything. That's why I divided my lecture into on 4 parts, 4 blocks. First block concerns the prerequisites or the reasons or the I would say, yes, historical prerequisites of the war. Because you know that Ukraine historically had a very important geographical position. That's why I want to start from the history, not just start from the analysis of the current situation. I will tell you later about all these things, but I have a PhD in social philosophy and philosophy of history. That's why historical analysis is very important for me. I also have Masters of Foreign Policy. I graduated from Diplomatic Academy. I use... Come. Alvida. Yeah. Spanish language we can speak. Yeah, we can speak. Okay. And concerning Spanish language, concerning the foreign languages, my main language is English and Arabic. I use Arabic language as a main language for communication with Middle East. I wrote PhD thesis, my PhD thesis work about the democratization of Middle East. So the Middle East, the East, Arabic East is one of my key priorities. But after the beginning of the full scale, like we say, invasion, I reoriented on the West and tried to communicate with my partners from European Union, from West, explaining the current situation, and I tried to comment the foreign policy and I would say international relation situation for the Ukrainian audience. So I quite famous in Ukraine as a political commentator, and it's hard sometimes to explain what is going on for Ukrainians, because even today I have a chat with some Lithuanian colleague, and I asked him about the future of foreign policy of your country, because after Polish problems, after Slovakian Polish problems, we all think that something can happen and the Lithuanian position will change. But I think it's impossible, because historically we have different relations from Polish and Slovakian. I made an interview today with Algis Latakas. He's a director of the seaport of Klaipėda, Latakas. And tomorrow I will have the interview with Mayor, with Vaiktus. So I try to communicate with politicians and with the different public figures in Lithuania to find out their vision of situation. And I think that Lithuania and Ukraine, we will have always very good relations, because we don't have any contradictions which can divide our political nation. So my first part of the lecture concerning the prerequisites of the full-scale invasion, and after my lecture, I want you ask me some questions about Ukraine, about the current situation. So the geographical position of Ukraine always were very, very attractive for different geopolitical actors, and you know it better than me. You know better than me that historically our countries, including Lithuania and Ukraine, were very, very important, and a lot of political players tried to influence Ukraine, Lithuania, Baltic, I would say Baltic, Black Sea area, and unfortunately, a lot of political scientists in the beginning of 90s, they spoke and were speaking about the possible conflict between Russia and Ukraine. For example, George Friedman, he directly wrote about this in his book, The Next 100 Years. The zones to protect it. Russia's grand strategy involves the creation of deep buffers along the northern European plain, while it divides and manipulates its neighbors, creating a new regional balance of power in Europe. It was written in 2009. So if you read Brzezinski, if you read George Friedman, if you read Kissinger, if you read Huntington, if you read all the main Western leading thinkers, you will see that they all tried to foresee such kind of war, and a lot of people were writing about possible conflict of Ukraine and Russia. I did not believe in such kind of scenario, because I'm from east of Ukraine, and I saw that we had some contradictions, but I had never believed it's in the war. But the first war, or we call it first aggression, first part of the hybrid war, started in 2014, and you remember. Unfortunately for Europeans, the war started 2 years ago. For Ukraine, it started 10 years ago. This is a difference, a very, very, very important thing, because after the annexation of Crimea and destabilizing of Donbass and annexed part of the Donbass region, Europeans, analytics and thinkers, they thought that it was over. But we in Ukraine, we know that Russia was preparing for a new war, and we were speaking about this everywhere. We tried to persuade the people that the war will come. It's a question of time. And then, on the eve of the full-scale invasion, the Americans began to speak about the inevitable war, and they tell to all the world that Russia will fight, that Russia will conquer, that Russia will try to invade Ukrainians. And we did not believe that it could be possible in such scenario in February. I mean, we were all anticipating the war, but nobody believed in that it will start on the 24th of February, like some intelligence service and journalists were telling. But the war started. It changed a lot. I think the full-scale invasion changed a lot, and this is my second part of my lecture. Actually, the full-scale invasion, I think you remember, everyone remember the date of 24th February, the date of invasion, and the consequences, how Russians tried to penetrate Ukraine. I was in Kiev in February and the first part of March. Then I went to Lviv, to west of Ukraine, and Transcarpathia. So what I can say you as a Ukrainian about Russian attempt to invade Ukraine, I think Russians tried to use blitzkrieg tactics. So Russians want to repeat, not to repeat, but to exercise blitzkrieg. So all their main activity to conquer Ukraine was the idea to do it very quickly, within 1 week. I think really Russians want to, like Germans in 1941, the Germans wanted to exercise blitzkrieg concerning the Soviet Union. As you know, the Germans tried to conquer Soviet Union within several months. I think Putin wanted to conquer Ukraine within 1 week. That's why Russians try to use the tactic of blitzkrieg. This is the Finland War in 1940, when Russian troops tried to conquer Finland within several weeks. And Stalin was already prepared the government in Moscow from Finnish politicians who should go after the conquest of Finland. In accordance with our information, Putin also prepared special former exiled politicians from Ukraine, pro-Russian politicians who were living in Kiev since 2014, since the first war. So I think the main idea of Putin was not to conquer the country of Ukraine, was to change the political government in Kiev, because the main target of Putin invasion was Kiev, from north, from Belarus and from Ukraine. I think Putin wanted to repeat the tactics of Americans in Iraq, when the Americans within several weeks changed the political system in Baghdad and they occupied actually the country, but they changed the political system and changed Saddam Hussein. But Russians failed, as you saw, and the negotiations began. I think most of you did not remember all these things, because usually the negotiations concerning Ukraine in media, in journalist sector, started from the Istanbul negotiations. But I think the main part of negotiations concerning the possible peace agreement, I don't know, started in Belarus. So the first round of negotiations started on the 28th of February. So 4 days later after the beginning of full-scale invasion. So Russians were forced to initiate negotiations because the blitzkrieg tactics failed, and then they proposed bilateral negotiations in Belarus, in somewhere in Gomel region. We don't know exactly where it was, because it was a secret place. We don't know exactly what village or what city, but in Gomel region. and there were 4 rounds of negotiations. 24th of February, the 8th of March, and the 10th of March. Yes, and the 3rd March. There were 4 rounds of negotiations in Belarus. They all failed. There wasn't any kind of resolution. And then, since the 10th of March, all negotiations were held in Istanbul, personally accompanied by Erdogan. And there were a lot of meetings, a lot of negotiations, but through the March of last year. And as you know, all these negotiations failed. And actually, there was withdrawal of troops of Russian Federation from the Kyiv in the end of March. And there was very good military operations by Ukrainian army in east, in south. So we reconquer, I would say, reoccupied or deoccupied, sorry, some our territories in north, in east, and there was very, very important visit of Boris Johnson to Kyiv on the 9th April. He came personally to Kyiv. I think he was one of the maybe the most highly level Western leader who came to Kyiv after the withdrawal of Russian troops. So it was the beginning of April, the 9th and the 8th of April. And then some analytics say that this visit changed a lot. Some analytics say that Boris Johnson persuaded Ukraine to keep on fighting. And some experts say that we shouldn't stop fighting. But my personal, as an expert, estimation of his visit and our decision to keep on was that we did right, not to stop war. I mean, not stop war, not to sign any kind of agreement with Russians, because nobody could guarantee whether Russia will stop. We had already the mistake to sign the Minsk agreement in 2014 and in 2015 in February. So the signing of agreement with Russia could cause the new invasion or new level of military Russian invasion later. That's why I think that our decision not to stop fighting in April of last year was right decision. However, some people criticize this position, but this is another thing. Concerning the third part of my lecture, this is the current situation. So I think you follow the news, you know to some extent what is going on now in Ukraine. So the main hotspots of front line and of war is east of Ukraine and south, but mostly Donbass. Donbass, east of Ukraine, is now I think the epicenter of the main clashes and main military operations. The problem is that when we speak about the war, about the consequences of the war, the biggest problem is that a lot of people, and I wrote about this in my article, a lot of people could prevent or could foresee, not prevent, sorry, could foresee the consequences of the war, and not the consequences, the beginning of the war, but nobody could foresee the consequences of the war. So I remember all days before the war very good. everybody was speaking that the Russians will start the war, that they will start the invasion, that the Russians will initiate the invasion, they will try to siege the Kiev, they will try to occupy Transnistria, Moldova. Everybody was speaking about the beginning of the war on the eve of the war, but nobody did not write anything, even scientists, even journalists, even experts, about the consequences of the war. If you will find something, send to me, please, because I need some facts. Because I think that 90% of the Western experts and post-Soviet experts was sure that this war would be very short. Very short. Even I, when I was writing a scientific article about the displaced persons, even I did not find any kind of information from the European Union experts or analytics who could foresee the accurate amount of the refugees, of the displaced persons, of the scale of this war. So I think that a lot of Western countries were not prepared for such kind of long-term conflict. And why I showed you the photo of Boris Johnson and Zelensky in Kyiv, because I think that after this visit, the majority of the Western countries realized that this war will be with the long-term consequences. This war would be with the long-term play. And I don't believe that this war will stop next year, as some experts say that next year the war will stop, there will be some peace agreement. I don't believe it. I think we should be prepared for the very long-term conflict, for the very long, unfortunately, conflict. And one of the geopolitical consequences of this war is that if you analyze that who helped us, it's in Ukrainian language, it means 20 biggest friends of Ukraine. It's Ukrainian Forbes prepared. So it's statistics of the biggest friends of Ukraine. So if you analyze who helped us at the beginning of the war, and these 20 countries who helped us a lot, this first, at the beginning of the war, and if you compare with the current figures, you will see that our reliable partners are still reliable. And the war in Ukraine, I think the war in Ukraine, the Russian aggression against Ukraine divided the world in two camps. One supporting Ukraine and another supporting Russia. And at the beginning of the war, there were not third party. Some countries like Turkey, like Austria, like Hungary, they tried to be neutral. They tried to be neutral because Turkey gave us the platform for negotiation. Hungary voted for us in European Union meetings, in NATO meetings. Austria, as a part of European Union, helped us a lot, but there were only two countries in the European Union who did not give us weapons. It was Hungary and Austria. But these countries tried to balance between friends of Russia, because you know who are now the allies of Russian Federation. It's Iran, North Korea, Belarus. I did not put here the flag of Belarus. And I can say that China is a Russian ally against Ukraine. I think China is a partner of Russia, but not ally of Russia in war against Ukraine, because Belarus Iran and North Korea, unfortunately, they are allies of Russian Federation because Belarus gave their territory, soil for invasion from north against Kiev. Iran sent drones to Russians and North Korea gave weapons. But China, still we don't have any information whether China gave something which Russia could use against Ukraine. So officially, we don't regard, and I not regard China as the partner of Russian Federation in war against Ukraine. Concerning Turkey, concerning the Hungary, after the April of last year, step by step, there was a process of beginning of forming of third union, I would say. During the Soviet period, there was a special union, or not union, it was some kind of union of organizations which was called in Russian language движение неприсоединения, like Yugoslavia, India, who did not to be ally of United States against Soviet Union, or they did not to be the ally of Soviet Union against United States. So they tried to be neutral between two camps, social and capitalists. Now we see that Turkey, Hungary, they want to balance between West and East. This is Viktor Orban, I think you know him. Yes. By the way, Zelensky met with Orban 2 days ago in Argentina also. It's a meeting from Malta, I think. Austria also tried to be very neutral between Ukraine and Russia. So all these countries try to balance. And step by step, we see the change of the mood inside European Union. You know this guy, yes? This is Orban, and this Wilders is a politician from Netherlands. So they're actually friends. And the last elections in Netherlands show that they try to change the European policy also towards Ukraine, but it's now complicated to analyze. And the change of political mood in the European Union is one of the direct consequences of the war, unfortunately. And we in Ukraine feel it, how mood, how tendencies, how trends are changing in Slovakia, in Poland, in Netherlands. And another direct consequences of the Russian aggression against Ukraine is this new conflicts who are appearing in different parts of the world. And the Karabakh or Azerbaijan, second or not second, it's third war, which recently started, is a direct consequences of the general geopolitical deterioration of situation. Another conflict, it's Israeli-Palestinian conflict. I, as a Middle East specialist, can speak about this conflict for many hours because I was in Israel, I was in Palestine, I know this region very good. But if the Russian will not try to conquer Ukraine, I think that Israel will not try to, the Palestinian Hamas will not try to do such terror attack against Israel, and Israel would not start its military operation against Hamas. And I think that one of the direct beneficiaries of the conflict in the Middle East still Russia Federation is, because the more conflicts will appear, the more United States should be involved in the supporting of Israel or Taiwan or Ukraine or I don't know, South American countries. So on the eve of the presidential campaign in the United States, it's a very high probability that Russia, Iran, North Korea, China, Belarus can provoke new hotspots to provoke United States to be involved more. This is the biggest geopolitical challenge. And when I speak about China and the United States, I was in China 5 times. I was actually even during the National Convention of Communist Party in 2017 in Beijing. And I can tell you that The Chinese always were speaking about Taiwan, that they want to reconquer Taiwan, they want to control Taiwan, but they did never attempt to Taiwan, because the United States still has the military agreement between Taiwan and the United States about the military cooperation. So one of the direct consequences of the war in Ukraine, that what we see, this is my last fourth block of analysis, that the world is very divided in two camps, unfortunately. And there is also the third camp. Some analytics call it global south. I don't know whether it's correctly to use such kind of topic, such kind of concept in the geopolitical sense, because the global south also very divided by the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. So if you analyze the countries who are in global south, Turkey, Middle East, Africa, one of them supported Israel, another supported Palestine. So the global south, I think it's a more economical concept rather than political. So what we see, what we could see, or what we will see next year and in the next 5 years. As I said in the beginning, that I don't believe that war will stop. I don't believe it. I don't see any kind of prerequisites for stopping of the war. We can make a long discussion about this, but as a Ukrainian, as a political analyst from Ukraine, from east of Ukraine originally, I don't see any signs of possible peace agreement, I don't know, or some kind of new agreement about the security situation in Europe. Everybody now waiting for the elections in the United States. When I speak with my colleagues in London, in Germany, in Austria, in Italy, in Ukraine, everybody waiting for the result of the presidential campaign in the United States. Could the elections influence significantly on the situation in Ukraine if Trump will win? My personal opinion, I don't believe that Trump will find some kind of solution with Putin. I don't believe it. I think that Republican Party much more anti-Russian than Democrats, I think. Because historically the Republicans, you know that in the Republican Party there are different wings, different group of influence, far right, pro-Russian or pro-Russian, but Republicans historically were based on the doctrine of Ronald Reagan, and Ronald Reagan doctrine was always very anti-Soviet. So I don't believe that Republicans, first I don't believe that Trump would be the president. I think the president could be somebody from Republican Party, but I don't believe that Trump will be the president. And I don't believe that if Republicans win, they will find a solution with Russian Federation, with Putin. I don't believe in I think the figure of Putin is absolutely unacceptable for the American establishment. This is my personal point of view. So the future of Ukraine in the next year depends on the level of American support, money, weapon, political, diplomatic support. Unfortunately, I see how Ukraine became a topic which used by American politicians every day. That's why we have the problems with the weapons supply. That's why we have problems even in the border with the European Union. Some politicians use it. That's why the Hungarian, the Polish, and other politicians use the situation, because they feel that the support from United States can be reduced, and they tried, I think, use the situation. Concerning our integration into European Union, you know that we are officially candidate to be a member of European Union. Whether we will be soon in the European Union or not, it's not depends on me, but I think that some countries inside European Union will block our fast integration. I can tell you who will be this. I think Hungary will block. I think even Austria will not support. I think Slovakia will not support, and some other countries. Because the conservative part of European Union, these countries from south of European Union, they always speak about the necessity to integrate into European Union Balkan countries and then Ukraine. And they speak about this everywhere, about that first Balkan countries and then Ukraine. I think that it's a serious challenge for European Union, most of all, not only for Ukraine. Concerning the NATO, I don't believe in the fast membership, unfortunately, of Ukraine in NATO, because Turkey and Hungary will not support us. And I have never heard any official statement from Erdogan that he would support Ukraine as a member in NATO. Never. The same is concerned Hungary. So I think these two countries will be a huge problem concerning the integration of Ukraine into NATO. So it's a long-term perspective. It's not a tragedy. It's not a tragedy because I think that even if we're not be integrated to some kind of union with NATO, I think we will be very close integrated to the bilateral geostrategic doctrine with United States, as well as Taiwan, as well as Israel. So I think that during next year, maybe on the eve of the next NATO summit, which will be in Washington, as I know, as according with my information, there will be signed some kind of bilateral agreement, the same which Israel and Taiwan has with United States. So actually what's happening now in the United States, if you will see, we Ukraine we were in the same budget as Israel was, but it was separated. But the sign, the reality that shows that the United States, the establishment in the United States tried to support us, Ukrainians, as well they support Israel, and as well as they will support Taiwan if the war will start there, I think shows and indicate that we can be very close ally of United States during next geopolitical reality. So I think that the future of resolving and the solution of the conflict in Ukraine and in the post-Soviet countries and the border near the European Union lies in removing of Putin's regime. So I think the key to the 100 resolution of a lot of problems lies in Russia, not in United States, not in Europe, because Biden cannot call Putin and say stop your troops in east of Ukraine. Unfortunately, Russians and Putin, they don't want to stop their pressure, their invasion, their aggression, their terror attacks against Kyiv, against Odessa, against our infrastructure. I think the only way how we can stop Putin and his machine, his activities, to strengthening Ukrainian army, to strengthen Ukrainian activity, military industry, to modernize it, because when we have a very good resistance against Russians, they changed their way of thinking. So I don't believe in any kind of consensus between the United States and Russia, even if Trump will win. I think it's not a question of Trump, it's a question of Putin's regime. I think Russians don't want to find any consensus with Americans concerning Ukraine and concerning post-Soviet countries. Maybe the war can be suspended for 1 year or for several years, as it was suspended 8 years ago. But I don't believe that during Putin era we could find some kind of agreement. And my last suggestions about the war, that we witness, and we are witness of new period of war, new phase, new level, new methods of the war. I think this war in Ukraine is one of the, unfortunately, is one of the most highly technological war in the history, maybe the most technological war in history, because a lot of IT, a lot of modern technologies used in Ukraine, used by Russians, by our Western allies, by Ukrainians to resist Russians. So it is the most technologically developed, I think, war in the history. This is one of the consequences of this war. Another consequences that this war changed significantly the market of a weapon. So we see how significantly changed the market, the existence of the market, and we see how weak, I think, some countries of European Union are concerning the military preparedness for the long-term conflict. I think that some European countries were not ready for the long-term conflict. Yeah, actually are not ready for the long-term conflict. And the last thing, I think this war showed the crisis of the international institutions. So I as a person who graduated from the diplomatic academy, and the person who has a master degree in foreign policy, I can understand and I cannot explain why the international institutions were so weak to prevent the war, to defend Ukraine against Russia, and now they are weak to find some kind of peace or some kind of solution concerning Ukraine, and punishment Russia for its crimes. So I don't see any effective institutional solution of international relations. That's all what I wanted to tell you during my short lecture. I have more information, more topics to discuss, but it's for another future lectures. And I just want to show you very short coverage of this war, of prerequisites of the war, and of the possible consequences. Maybe it's more my personal estimation of the situation, but it's based on the facts. It's based on the facts, and I tried to show only facts as I saw it, without using some conspirators or conspirology theories, which is not acceptable for the professionals, but acceptable for the taxi drivers. And we should be careful in our analytics and our analysis, and should follow mostly facts. And facts are not good if we speak about the possible short-term, I don't know, quick stop of the war. Unfortunately, this is my opinion. So if you have any questions, you can ask them in Russian or in English language. I am ready to answer. Sorry for the long-term lecture. Please, Alvida, Yaroslav, or Kestutis or you guys, you can ask me. I can answer. Yeah.
How do you mention any future diplomacy that Russia is going to go after the war? Does it not wins or loses?
You mean in what sense? Can you repeat, please, the question?
Well, future diplomacy, for example, are we going to have another Iron Curtain type of situation, or is just Russia going to be written off as North Korea?
You mean their foreign policy?
Not really. I mean, all future diplomatic interactions with the region.
In the post-Soviet? Ukrainian-Russian relations, you mean?
I'm talking overall, the entire world and Russia.
Ah.
So, for example,
Yeah, I understand. Sorry, I misunderstood maybe in the beginning. I see that the all the world will be divided in two camps. So yes, I think that we are not in the end of the geopolitical conflict. We are in the 1935 year. If we will go in the machine of time to the past, I think we are not in the 1945, the end of the Second World War. I think we are in the 1935. So I think we are on the eve of big conflict, and Russia will strengthen its relations with Belarus, with Iran, with North Korea, and I think they will try to control all the post-Soviet countries. As you know, in the post-Soviet countries, in the Soviet system or Soviet Union, there were 15 republics. Three, Lithuania, Estonia, and Latvia are in NATO and European Union, so it remains 12. Ukraine is resist to Russia, so it remains 11. But all these countries, all 11 countries, including Georgia, Azerbaijan, Armenia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, they did not support any sanctions against Russia. Any sanctions. Any. Economical, political, any. So I think Russia will try to strengthen its presence in the post-Soviet region. This is my personal point of view. And it means that we should anticipate new conflict in the next year. I don't know where it will be, in Georgia, Karabakh, but I think it will be Central Asia region. I mean, Afghanistan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, because everything is ready for new conflict there. That's why we should wait in new conflict. And Russia, during the Putin's era, will not be more, I think, acceptable as a partner for the West countries. I don't speak about India, about China, about Arab countries. They all will try to find economical and good relations with Russia because they are mostly authoritarian system. And for Iranian people, for the Belarus people, unfortunately, for North Korea, Russia, quite acceptable as a partner. But all these unions, I was in Iran, in Tehran, I was in China, I was in Belarus, I was in other countries with authoritarian system. All these allies with Russia, they are not natural. I know how Chinese think about Russia. I know how Iranians and what Iranians think, the people, the ordinary people, they don't like Russia historically. So these unions, they are not natural. It's a temporal and forced unions against West, against United States mostly. And we are waiting for the next step of China. I think the Chinese activity this will be decisive, and it will be the most important. But Chinese, they are very patient. They will wait. This is their strategy. And I think they will try to balance between the United States and Russia and wait for the position of Trump about Taiwan. So I think the China will not initiate Taiwan operation at least in the near future. So Russia within the Putin era will not be acceptable partner. What will be after Putin, I don't know, because I asked the same question to the Russian opposition leaders. I asked the same question you asked me from Ilya Ponomaryov. Ilya Ponomaryov, he is the most famous and most active Russian opposition leader now. He lives sometimes in Kiev. He created a Russian legion in the Ukrainian army who fought against Russians. Russian Legion Svoboda, Liberty called. So he told me in the interview that there are only two ways how to change situation in Russia. It's evolutionary and revolutionary. Evolutionary, it's a predecessor system. But if you know Russian history, you remember that during the last 100 years, the only way how Russia changed their political, after the revolution, I mean, it was directly or indirectly predecessed by the predecessor. Lenin invited politically Stalin and Trotsky to be their predecessors, and after his death they have some quarrel and Stalin won. After Stalin's defeat, during Stalin's era, Stalin invited Khrushchev and Beria to be his closest predecessors, and after his death, Khrushchev won Beria. Yeltsin did not do like this. He pointed directly, Putin, you will be my predecessor. I asked Ilya Ponomaryov what will be in Russia during Putin's biological life, because he's a 71, I think, years old. Yes, 71. He was born in 1952, during Stalin era, by the way. So I don't know. I think he's 70 years old. So he has now 10 years period, 71. So Ponomaryov told me that Putin has already appointed two persons as a predecessor. This is Mishustin, Prime Minister of Russia, and Medvedev. Medvedev, he is the only one Putin's deputy in the Security Council. So he has all strings of power, and he was actually the president. Yeah. That's why I think that Putin will not be, he will not use the Yeltsin's system, so he will not appoint directly. He will be the president until his death. So what will be after the Putin, we don't know. And who will be the president or Tsar of Russia, we don't know. It depends on the internal situation. But we, Lithuanians and Ukrainians, we should analyze and think about this, because we, Ukrainians and Lithuanians, we are the best specialists on Russia. Who knows Russia better than Ukrainians and Baltic countries? No, nobody. The Western countries, they don't know it very good. So we know, we are really specialists in the post-Soviet countries, especially concerning the aggression and Russian way of exercising internal politics. That's why we have, I think, 2 or 5, no, I think we have, I think, several years. We have to wait several years and waiting for the internal changing of internal situation inside Russia. I think we don't see any other tools how to change the situation. Whether it will be some coup plot inside by some general, could be, I don't know. Whether it could be, I don't know. I don't believe in this. I think Putin centralized the political system very, very seriously inside Russia. I don't see any rivals and threats inside Russia against Putin. But everything could happen. We remember Black Swan, who came and changed some unpredictable event, who can change everything, and everything could be. That's why we have to Just wait and strengthen Ukraine as a country who in the avant-garde of resistance against Putin's Russian system. So, other questions? No? Kęstutis?
What about the informational war? What is Wiener Schwuler?
Oh, it's a complicated question. Informational war. There is two things concerning information war. Two most important things which I wanted to say, which I saw as a Ukrainian when Russians tried to conquer Ukraine. I saw their propaganda and I saw the reaction of Western media and the reaction of the Ukrainian media, the activity of Russian Federation. I think that we Ukrainians and Lithuanians, we have immunity against Russian propaganda because we saw what Russians did in Ukraine during the last 8 years before the full-scale invasion. We saw the atrocities, the crimes of Russia after the Donbass war, and we saw how Russians could act, and we saw how Russians use media, social networks, Telegram, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram even, to influence Ukrainian mind. And they failed. Because the biggest mistake of the Russian intelligence service and the Russian strategy was that they did not see and foresee the level of strength and self-organization of Ukrainian civil society. And we were so self-organized, so prepared, the society, not politicians. We were so prepared for possible Russian coming that the Russians did not understand when they came to Ukrainian villages and the Ukrainians told them they told them in Russian language, why you did come to Bucha or to Irpin. So Russians were sure for 100%, their soldiers, even special security soldiers, they were sure that the Ukrainian will percept at least 40% of the population. 40 or maybe 30% will percept the Russians. But the majority, more than 80% of the people rejected Russians everywhere, in Donbass, in North and South, everywhere. That's why Russian strategy failed. And the positive side for Ukrainians of the information war was, as you said, that we were prepared. But there is dark side of information. This is unpreparedness of Europeans to this war. And I think Russia used very professionally, very seriously, the media information field of European Union to promote their ideas in Hungary, in Slovakia, in Austria, mostly in south of European Union, even in Germany. They used not directly Russian propaganda, they used different narratives. So they changed, for example, pro-Russian rhetorics to anti-war rhetorics. So when somebody say about anti-war mottos and slogans in the European Union, I always try to understand what does it mean anti-war? What does it mean anti-war position in Vienna, in Berlin? And I try to find out what do you mean anti-war? And then I can distinguish where there is Russian propaganda, when there is real personal position, because there is economical consequences of the war for the European Union, and we see the prices, we see the consequences. It's okay, it's acceptable. But the Russian narratives, they are very, very deeply inside now in West, even in England, even in the United States. So I think the West did not read the books by Russian main manipulate by Karamurza, his books about the manipulation of the consciousness of the people. He wrote everything these things 20 years ago, how to manipulate the people. And Russia used these propaganda methods everywhere. And the West were not prepared for the long-term war and for the information war. This is my personal position. And still, a lot of Europeans they cannot distinguish where there is Russian narratives or where there is pro-Ukrainian, I would say, position. So it's a very hard topic. Yes. Yaroslav, thanks for your help to calculation the Putin's age. Alvida, no, you don't have, don't.
About what next after Putin. Now let's maybe have some explain what next after Zelensky, the Ukrainian side.
Oh, it's a provocative question. No, very I came from Kiev, you know. I have to be very, 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 very attentive. No, I'm just kidding. I don't believe that after Zelensky will come soon. I think the symbol of Zelensky is very important for unity of Ukraine. I think that Zelensky should be the leader of our nation for the next years. He's a symbol of resistance of the Putin. He's a symbol of resistance against the political regime of Russian Federation. He's a symbol of the unity of West. He's a symbol of the unity of Ukrainians, despite the language, the faith, the church. But if Zelensky will decide to go, like Churchill did it, for example, or if some other things could happen, I don't see, unfortunately, now the person who can replace him. It means that it will provoke a new political debate inside Ukraine who will be his predecessor. Generals, militaries, politicians, who will be. And it can provoke a new political crisis in Ukraine, which is not good during the war or after the war. That's why I think it's a very dangerous topic who will be after to discuss. I mean, for the future of Ukraine, who will be after Putin, after Zelensky, as well as who will be after Putin. Yeah, but after Zelensky, it's a complicated thing, and I hope the unity of the country will stay. And Zelensky better now for an important person as a symbol of unity of Ukrainians. This is my personal point of view. Well, I made several commenters about the so-called conflict of Zaluzhny and General Zaluzhny and Zelensky. I don't believe in their conflict. I don't believe. I think they have different point of views on some things, but in accordance with my information, I know the people around Zelensky and the politicians around Zaluzhny, they don't have any direct conflict. But they have different points of view about the future of the maybe conflict, of the defense strategy, on the counter-offensive, these military things. But for me, they are one team. But there are some people inside Ukrainian politics or outside Ukraine who try to persuade Zaluzhny to be much more anti-Zelensky. So I think some politicians want to use this conflict, possible conflict between Zaluzhny and Zelensky, to persuade Zaluzhny to be main rival of Zelensky and to weaken Zelensky. And I think some people try to, some third party, not Zelensky, not Zaluzhny, but some third party tried to benefit from this conflict and to escalate the situation. But I think they will not succeed. This is my personal. inside of Ukraine. Come to Ukraine, and I will accompany you to the front line. You will see, you will see the real situation. We'll speak with the soldiers, with the political analysts. No, don't try. A lot of it. Yeah, it's quite open. Even it's not problem, and I can help you. And a lot of journalists came from the world, politicians to Ukraine. So. No, you can come. Volunteers is a volunteer to bring some help, some skilandis or other things. You know, it's very important. Yeah, the skilandis is better for me. Okay, thank you for everything. Last question, yeah.
When are you celebrating?
What?
When are you celebrating the victory of Ukraine?
We have already won. We have already won in February last year because we forced Russians to change their tactics. And the new tactics of Russia now is to destroy the state. They just want to destroy the state, the territory. Putin has some kind of personal revenge, personal question, I think, towards Ukrainian politicians and to Ukrainian nation. And for Putin, the existence of Ukraine is absolutely unacceptable. And he just, maybe not to destroy the state, I think it's impossible to do, but he wants to weaken, to use different methods. Sometimes they use economical methods when they block the south of our country. We cannot export through Odessa. Sometimes they use military, they kill our nation, people, soldiers. Sometimes they use technological methods, like they exploded the dump in Kherson and they destroyed all our best agricultural soil for many years. Sometimes they used political tool, the information propaganda. So they use different tools, depends on the situation. But the main target is to destroy the country and to annex the Crimea, annex industrial Donbass, because we have 20% of our industry in Donbass, coal, a lot of things, salt. And then they can use other methods how to weaken our country. That's why I don't understand fully their strategy, but depends on the situation. Sometimes they try to destroy the energy plants, sometimes they want to destroy our capacity in energy sector. So the main idea is just to weaken or destroy the country. That's why they will use different methods. That's why I think the main strategy of the Putin to beat the Ukraine failed quickly, to change the politics. And now we see some kind of terrible atrocity improvisation. And I think they don't have quite specific tactics. They have strategy, but they don't have tactics. And they use different tools. That's why, unfortunately, in your question, victory, it means the end of the war. And I don't know where it will be the end. I don't know. Not soon, I think. Thank you. Thank you very much.